Such trouble today. So, the decisions you make right now will determine everything. This isn't about the past. It isn't about what's happened. Here's what you need to know. There are 4 pillars to a Happy New Year. 4 pillars. Okay. What I mean by that is here are the 4 pillars. Relationships is one of them. Wealth / home is your second pillar. Third pillar is health. Fourth pillar is your spirituality. Now, our series is going to be about every one of those, but I'm going to start with relationships. So, you must be in a relationship, by the way, with yourself first before you really can have a marvelous relationship with someone else. Now, many couples do it at the same time, or many couples do it one and not the other. Whatever you choose to do. See, you've got to go on. You've got to do the work because you're the one that's listening. No matter what kind of family we came from, no one has a strong relationship to the self. If you will, a sense of yourself. Until we study consciousness and until we work on ourselves, until we are aware of some of these principles. And let me tell you, you may think, well, I'm getting by just fine. I got a great job, got a great family, no problem. Who needs a sense of self? That isn't true. Because as soon as something happens in life that's difficult, you better hold on to that. You better hold on to that. My own mother, when she was dying, and I was sitting by her deathbed, a similar thing is happening right now with a friend of mine who is passing. But my own mother, she had spinal cancer. That's what killed her. And she sat, and we were instructed, honestly, not to touch her or anything because it's like, spinal cancer is similar to, how when a dentist hits a nerve in your tooth? Okay, well, imagine that all over your body. That's spinal cancer. So at one point, when her cancer was very acute and she was clearly dying, it was very hard not to touch my precious mother, right? But a touch or anything that stimulated the nervous system could set this off. So we were trying to be very careful with that. Well, my mother, who had been prone now for several weeks, sat bolt upright in bed, talking to the angels, so she said afterwards, which I do believe, it was just instinct on my part. I grabbed her, thinking that she was going to hurt herself or something. I don't know what I was thinking, but I grabbed her, and she looked at me, and she said, "As long as I live, I will never forgive you for that," because she thought I had separated her from the angels, right? And we've had a good laugh since. I can hear spirit, and she didn't live that long, so she totally forgives me now. But it's very hard, for example, when someone is passing. Hello, darling Jim. It's very hard when someone is passing and they say something cruel out of their delirium or out of whatever they're going through. You've got to know who you are. You've got to know that what they think about you or that anybody thinks about you isn't true, that you have a sense of who you are and yourself. That's extremely important. So you may not think that's important until something happens, and maybe a variety of things that happen because life happens, right? Okay. But I'm going to tell you now, it's one of the most important things that you can develop is this sense of self, and it only comes through the work in consciousness on yourself. When we talk about consciousness, you have 4 bodies. You have the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual bodies. And consciousness, full consciousness, does not awaken until all 4 of your bodies get it. Now, what do I mean by getting it? You may meditate, you may read on these principles. Oh, really? My darling Lisa says, my Aunt Bet counts the angels. She got up to 66 when we were there. And I had a precious time with her. How marvelous. Well, thank you, Michelle. Happy New Year to all of you. We are wishing you all the best. I'm so glad that you called it. That you're you're appearing here on Facebook. I hope we can keep the connection. All right. So you may meditate, you may read about consciousness, and all of that is such good stuff. Going to church, all that, whatever serves you is great. But really, honestly, only work on yourself, being aware every week. Then we try to deepen you and get you even more aware. What is going to do it is when you work on yourself. You're very aware of what you're doing. You don't judge yourself. You say, I'm doing it. Okay, I'm catching myself doing it. Martha says I need to substitute something. There are many, many ways to play this out, but you've got to be aware. The consciousness is about the triad: awareness, consciousness, enlightenment. You see? Okay. So, you almost have to have a coach. And I'm not saying that because I am one. I'm saying that because it's just true. There's some things that we don't want to know about ourselves. Every step along the way. And you've got to find someone very neutral that is a good neutral source that can help you find the truth that you don't want to face so you can face it and go on. Once you bring these things up and they come to light, they're just energy. Where do you think they go? They go into the present. They go into the present and your energy and who you are and your awareness and your consciousness. It's just the most amazing system of energy. But these energies are trapped in the ego child's mind because they form them, and they're trapped in the nervous system until we release them. You see, until we face them and go, patooey, let's move on. Okay. So the first thing to do is start coming into relationship with yourself to find your true sense of self. Who are you? Beyond who you think you are, beyond what you've created because of your old beliefs about yourself. Who are you? There's a lot out there that one is not investigating. There always is. There's with me. I'm determined to investigate it, but we have to investigate it for you to have the life that you actually want and to be able to create it. You understand? We can't hide. We have to be open to it. And many people, and I want to say this and put this on the table, many people run from one discipline to another, one guru to another, trying to find themselves, right? The truth is, find one who's going to kick your ass. I'm sorry, but that's true. That's not afraid to tell you the truth. Stay, and does it in love, and stay with them. And if they are growing and changing, you won't have to leave them. If they're not, if they have ascribed to a certain discipline that is not a moving one that tells you more and more and more, you probably are going to have to change coaches, guides. I want to say again, I've started my book, and I don't have it in front of me. I gave my last copy away. The Life You Want. You can find it on our website. And in that book, I start out by saying, this is the age of individual consciousness. And what you do now, operative word now, by the way, what you do now will determine everything. And it will. That's what's so remarkable about New Year's. You got all this collective consciousness that's celebrating New Year's. They're celebrating it sometimes by not the healthiest ways to celebrate, but they're out there celebrating, and all that energy is yours to create with, yours to use as a commitment to the new you. You see? That's what holidays do, like Christmas and Hanukkah and New Year's. There's a collective energy that we can tap into. That's why it's such an important time. Here's some tips about coming into relationship with yourself as well. I think that might help. I think we've got to stop morally indicting ourselves when we make a mistake. It's just what's happening and nothing more than that. But what we do is we then apply a whole bunch of emotional attachments to it, and we go, excuse the French, but right down the toilet with it, okay? Let's take an example. Let's say you get a traffic ticket for speeding. Okay, so who hasn't? You get a traffic ticket for speeding. That's all there is. But what people do is they'll have all these emotional attachments to that event that are not warranted, that are coming directly from the egoic child's mind. So you get a ticket. All right? Let's give you an example of what the child's mind does. You are horrified to be caught, because when you were caught when you were little doing something that you shouldn't have been doing, you got whipped, you got beaten, you got punished in some way, and it was very humiliating and terrible, okay? You have learned, by the way, to side with the punishers. All of us have this, by the way, this kind of Stockholm syndrome. We have sided with the punishers, and now we believe we are bad. So you get caught by the police for speeding, you're bad, you're saying to yourself. You deserve this ticket because it's the symbol for your whole life. You're a mess, and you're going to be punished for being a mess, and you are the judge and jury for yourself, and you are handing down a life sentence because you are morally indicting your whole being. Do you hear what you're doing to yourself if you do this? Most people do this when they get a ticket. But you've simply gotten a ticket. Go pay it and move on. This is, about learning something and trying not to speed in the future. But it's not a moral indictment of you. You just got a stupid ticket. Come on. Okay. Look, it's human to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. There is actually a quota that out of every 10 things that you do, 3 or 4 of them are going to be mistakes. We have to realize that. We have to realize we're making the best decision at the time, and we have to forgive ourselves when we have made a mistake, for heaven's sakes. We have to come out of our childhood and just accept the consequences of our action. In this case, speeding. Okay, we speeded. Okay. You are not being morally judged except by yourself, and we've got to learn to stop it. So, here's how to stop it. Number 1, be aware that you are trying to morally indict yourself. Inappropriate. And it's kind of like killing a flea with a sledgehammer. That's a little too much, right? Okay. And then substitute something else for the judgment of yourself. I remember a time in my life when I was judge and jury to myself. And I remember during this time, because you all know I used to be an actor, I went and auditioned for a television show that I had been in several times. Anyway, so I kind of knew the producer. But I did a really stupid thing, which I always tell my students not to do. I did a stupid thing, and the stupid thing was that I did not study. What I did, instead of studying, is I decided to, guys, I am looking at, I hope we're on Blog Talk Radio. I think we are, but if we're not, my apologies, and I would say go to Facebook Live and see this. And gosh, if I lose you on Facebook Live, please go to Blog Talk Radio. That's all I know to do. All right. Yes, Lisa says, new year is a new way of living and loving, and you are absolutely right. Thank you, Jim, too. He says, what an opportunity, and it is an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for us to go on with our lives in a powerful way. So anyway, go back to my blowing the audition. I saw an old friend of mine I hadn't seen for years, right? He was back from L.A., and oh my God, I was so glad to see him. So I talked to this man the whole way, and then they called my name to come in for the audition. I hadn't even looked at the script, so I walk in with the script, and my tongue gets tied. And I go, excuse me, start again. tongue gets tied again. I just can't do it. My mind is out there with him, right? Oh, I was so embarrassed. So I just take the script. I know the producer. I take the script. I go over there and I said, I am so sorry. I'm so unfocused today. And I think I could have stayed in bed and called my audition in from home and done the same thing. So, forgive me, I was not prepared. And I put it on his desk and I left. Now, we all laughed about it. That was all fine, and they knew who I was. But the problem is I got in the car and I had a long drive home from this audition. And man, my VOJ, my voice of judgment, really started coming up. Oh my God, they're not going to think I'm a professional. Even, I've just blown everything. It's what I did today, not what I did all the other auditions and all the other times I've got the job. I'm just terrible. And I stopped myself within the first minute. I realized what I was doing. Very important for you to realize what you're doing. And I thought, well, what can I do instead? All right. Now, I think it's really important to come into the present. It doesn't require any more than you looking around, you seeing things, you holding onto the steering wheel, you feel the things through your senses, through the hearing or the auditory, the tactile, whatever. Come to the present. Because what you are doing, that voice of judgment, is from the past. You see, it's the child. Why are you going to listen to a 6-year-old now? For heaven's sakes, guys, don't let that 6-year-old drive the bus. 6-year-old is dear, but they belong in the back of the bus, and you need to drive it, right, with your consciousness. All right. So I started singing a song. Now, I remember the first verse, which was VOJ, go away, come again another day. You are such a fart. I mean it with my heart. I was just emoting all over the place. And I laughed so hard by the end of the song, making everything up and finding rhymes and keeping myself busy, that I was fine when I got home. And when I got home, here's the end of the story. So help me God, I had the job. On the phone, I had the job. I don't know how that happened, but I know that if I had not done that, and the energy had been a moral indictment, I wouldn't have gotten it. So come on, kids. Nothing's the end until you say it's the end, right? Okay. We have to just simply accept what is and know who you are if it's a criticism, and hold on to who you are. Guys, everyone can't understand us. Everyone can't understand us. Why are we trying to run around and say that's important? We need to understand us. That's the thing. And we have to be 100% okay with the starting point, which is what is. Okay? Now, another tip. We need to find out what love is, because no one really knows when we're in the ECM. We don't. You see, it goes far beyond the love of partners. Love is the energy of God, and God is all you are, and God is all everything is, and there's a oneness to all life. There are 2 levels to God. We've talked about this before, but it bears mentioning now to anybody who's listening for the first time. There's the fear-based God that creates in you a belief in absence and in lack, right? You believe in the absence of God in this case. And there's the love-based God that is fullness and is your partner in thriving. Both of these aspects are God. If you think of it like a thermometer, there are low readings on the thermometer and there are high readings on the thermometer. Our path in life, our journey to consciousness, is about going from these low vibrations, these low readings that tell us lack is what we're experiencing, to the upper ones. And the whole point of partnership with another is that you have achieved partnership with yourself. Know what real love is, expanded your ability to love. Realized, by the way, yourself as love, which is what the sense of self is all about. And knowing how to keep yourself safe in love and being vulnerable and growing without controlling it. Then you find your partner and you choose that person to complete the love that you are. I think that bears repeating. You choose that person to complete the love that you are, because you know what it is now, and it's not complete until you give it away. You see? Okay. If they're the right person, then, of course, they'll give it back to you. And through the years, it'll deepen and grow. But if you think that that happens without work, we got to call that fantasy, because it certainly is hard work. Joyous work, a privilege to work on this, but it is hard work. And you must know yourself really well to do it. In my first marriage, I didn't. In my second, I do. There is a world of difference. You do have a right to love and be loved, but you surely need to know as much about it as you possibly can while you're single or while you're partnered. It doesn't matter whether the other partner goes along with it or not. You'll be happier if you do it, you see? And the interesting thing is this: when we are really linked as souls, you change, the other person changes too. They change, you change, and it's a marvelous growing process. And we've also got to realize that love is not about staying or going in a relationship. Love is about growing. Growing. That's what love is about. So if you're in a relationship that you can grow in, that's great. If you're in a relationship where there's no more growth, it's time perhaps to go. But truly, this can't be an egoic presumption. It's time to go. I'm not getting what I need. It can't be an egoic presumption based on past experience. It's got to be a deep, powerful, thoughtful knowing. And only then do you move. Another tip. You must learn to have self-respect. And this means knowing your boundaries, what they even are, because they are enormously personal to you, and you need to respect them. Now, your boundaries are not the egoic OCD rules, by the way. No, that's not what we're talking about. Boundaries are what you know as a soul to protect the sense of self. And this will travel with you through your whole life, what your boundaries are. By observing your boundaries, because they are in complete alignment with the ascended God you are in your highest self, these boundaries are essential to your self-respect. But here's what happens. Most of the time, when we are unaware and in our unaware state and just moving, just working, not thinking, not aware, we cross them 5 or 6 times a day, never correcting the fact that we have crossed these boundaries, never even aware that we've crossed these boundaries. And then we go home at the end of the day, and guess what? We don't understand why we're depressed, why we're anxious, why we're sad, and why we're lonely. Well, let me tell you, it's the abandonment of ourselves by crossing these boundaries, so you've got to know what they are. You cannot cross them, and you cannot let other people cross them either. But the interesting thing is, because we're not aware of crossing our own, we're an open book. People cross them all the time. We never know to call them on that, because we don't ever call ourselves on that. We've got to wake up, you see? We can't abandon ourselves. On our journey to wholeness, By the way, this is what we're talking about here, our journey to wholeness when we talk about having a happy new year, right? We also, and here's another tip, we have to learn to have compassion for ourselves. And by the way, we often mix up compassion with self-indulgence. Isn't that interesting? I'll give you an example later. But they're not the same. Not at all. Self-indulgence is from the ego. True compassion is from the highest self. Here's my definition of compassion. Compassion is the ability to recognize that you are one with all of life, and because we are, we allow people and things to be as they are without judgment. Well, that's good. But that means you have to be without judgment of yourself. This is a live and let live experience, right? Everybody has a right in this life to live and die the way they choose. I believe that in my soul. So this is not just about other people having compassion. It is about having compassion for yourself too. Yourself, by the way, is human. Now, in my opinion, our humanness is one of the hardest things that we have to accept. Blog Talk Radio has just disappeared. I hope you won't. All right. We have learned to judge ourselves and to punish ourselves for things that we think and feel and do that are, by the way, distinctly human. That's inappropriate. We have to stop indulging in self-blame. It is an indulgence. Here's the indulgence that we mix up with compassion, self-blame. It isn't the ascended part of you that ever judges you. It is the egoic child's mind, and you're accepting it as truth. That's not even rational. And we must realize this. And we must stop it in some way by a substitution, if that helps you. We must learn, by the way, here's another tip, to forgive ourselves this year as well. Now, there's forgiveness that is lip service, and there is forgiveness that's the real thing. We want the latter. You're going to need to be emotionally honest with yourself when we talk about forgiveness. Because many people who just want their work to be done and want to think better of themselves create a fantasy that they've forgiven when they haven't at all. And because this is a betrayal of yourself, this lie that we've forgiven when we have not, you will have those repercussions from lying to yourself. This is a boundary you're crossing. Depression, sadness, anxiousness, loneliness. Okay, I want you to see how this works. Real forgiveness, though, comes from the depth of self. At its base is the knowledge that we are one with everyone, even the person you're having a hard time forgiving. And it works with its sister, compassion, to help you realize that what is going on when you are forgiving truly is complete. It's complete. There's nothing left to say or do. It is finished in your being. And you move on, and here's an important word, cleanly, without dragging anything of the past and of that experience with you. Clean is complete. Okay. So moving on might mean cleaning up your relationship with another person. Relationship here is an exchange of energy. Love for love, friendship for friendship, time for money. That's an exchange of energy as well. All of these things are exchanges of energy, and they're good when they're clean. However, when there is an imbalance, say when one person is providing all the energy as the other person is not providing any of the energy, That is imbalance, and it's not going to go well. So if you recognize this situation in your life somewhere, oh, I don't know how I can even see out of these glasses here, so dirty. When you recognize that this is a relationship in your life that you are giving, and getting nothing in return, that there's an imbalance of some sort, it's very, very important that you correct this by talking about this with the other person if they matter to you, and if they do not, then in some way realizing what's going on and doing something about it in one way or another. You see, you can't build a good relationship on resentment. It doesn't work. And resentment inevitably grows out of some sort of imbalance. Now, look, we all need recognition and appreciation. But a lot of it we must provide for ourselves. And then we won't be so sensitive when we don't get it from another. You've got to realize that when we don't provide it for ourselves, we call that being needy. We then start exhibiting very needy signs, neediness and desperation. We can't do that. We've got to provide this for ourselves. We all want to be with people who recognize us and appreciate us. And the way to start a relationship like this is to recognize and appreciate who you're with. That is, be the loving person that you are, and see if other people are capable of returning that degree and kind of caring and love to you. That's how you know who your best friends are, okay? I think to have a happy life, one must also have celebrations. Now, there are certain holidays that are mandated. We talked about that, having a collective energy, and that's really wonderful. But personal milestones need to be celebrated too. And I'm not just talking about the raise at the job or the diploma. I'm talking about more about little things. The day, no matter what month it is, of your anniversary, you could celebrate, right? Little surprises here and there that say, thank you just for being. And I'm not talking about, by the way, this just in relationship to other people. I'm talking about this in relationship to you. You know, when you've passed a milestone, it might mean nobody else. It might mean nothing to anybody else but you. What are you going to do for yourself? You need to do something to celebrate. Most people, for example, here's an example, go through a bad experience and they stop right there. They try to put it out of their minds. They try to get on with a distraction of some sort. But what if you go and reward yourself for getting through it and buy yourself a little something or do a little something for yourself? You don't need money. You can have somebody that loves you give you a massage. You can go appreciate the beauty of something. You can give yourself a reward by calling a friend from long ago. You can do something for yourself to reward yourself for getting through a hard time, but most people don't. And I say you're not finished with any situation until you've cared for yourself in some way, particularly if the situation was unpleasant. And no talk of wholeness and relationship is complete without talking about sex, right? And intimacy. So let's talk about that for a minute. To have the best sex, one must be unguarded, vulnerable, and cease controlling themselves or other people. And by the way, I think, honestly, the best sex often comes, the sex that is part of intimacy, comes from our having, it's energetic really, taking our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual bodies and channeling all that energy through the physical for the act of sex. Wonderful sex is achieved that way, in that channeling through the physical body. And I honestly think this is the sexual experience as it's meant to be. But oftentimes, now here's the other thing, intimacy is equated only with a sexual experience, and intimacy is far more than sex. Sex is just a small part of intimacy. The 4 bodies we have that we've talked about, the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, are incredibly important for intimacy. While sex is a physical act at its base, real intimacy comes when all 4 bodies are open and willing to communicate with another person. Real intimacy comes just not by taking off our clothes, but by taking off our defenses. You understand? Real intimacy comes not just from the act of taking off our clothes, but taking off our defenses. Can we say anything to our partner? Can we lovingly bring up any topic and have a loving discussion about it? Can we express our feelings and know that we'll be heard and respected? Can you express yourself spiritually and know you're safe and respected for your opinions? And by the way, interestingly enough, real intimacy does not come from everybody believing the same thing. It comes from mutual respect, by the way. My husband, I love him dearly. He is the greatest man that I know. But he doesn't use the words that you and I do when we talk about these shows. He hasn't had some of the fantastic spiritual experiences that I have been open to and had the privilege of seeing and experiencing in my life. But he believes that I believe it, and he totally supports that. I haven't seen and experienced the same things that he has. He's an engineer. My gosh, he's had a life experience that I can't even begin to understand. He can fix anything. He knows how it all works. He's an amazing human being. Well, I didn't understand that either, but I know that he does. And I totally support that. It's the same thing, right? We're doing the same thing for each other in different ways. So don't you be out there looking for somebody to speak the same language. Look for a good person who supports your belief in it. And then you've got some really incredible things to, by the way, exchange. Here's the thing. There was a study done a number of years ago on what makes love last, what makes couples last and still love each other after 70 years or whatever. And you know what they found? They found their word was novelty. Novelty. Well, what that is the deepening of the growth experience and learning and consciousness, and then sharing it with the other person. Wow! So that everybody's learning in this. If you're learning, you're growing, if your consciousness is raising, all right? That's how to stay in love, by the way, with yourself and with other people. I think it really works. Learn something this year. Learn something this year. Nothing's stopping you if you want to learn a language. Get a language book. Get some of the free programs on the internet about learning language. Grow. Travel. You don't have to travel to grow, but you could if you learn a language and you start being proficient at it. And I think one of the really important growth processes is creativity. We'll not paint, for example. I didn't for years because I could not be Monet. I wanted to be Monet. I love Impressionism. I love realism. I can't do that. I don't have it in me. But I can paint. I can draw. I can write. I can express myself even if I'm not some of the people I most admire. I am me, and you are you. And it's really important that your emotions, your feelings, your your thoughts, your very being gets expressed in some creative way. And I hope you will find something to do this year of that nature, because I think that is one of the ways we can stay in balance, using that part of us. If we are creative in that way, we're playing. It's not serious. We don't have to be the best artist in the world. We don't have to create a masterpiece. We don't have to create the great American novel. We can just enjoy ourselves. And that's play. And that's really, really important for our well-being. I also want to give you another tip. And this tip goes back to the beginning, but I think it's a good tip, and we're almost finished anyway. The tip is, please get comfortable with change. Change is just God moving you in some way. That's all change is. It can expand the mind and deepen who you are as love. It can take us to marvelous physical depths of joy. And it can teach us something spiritually. We must think new thoughts and deepen our feelings and have new ones. And we must do new things and see a more global world spiritually. I think that change is always good, except for what judgments we put on it from the past. You see, when we were in the past, we thought as a child that change might be bad. That's what we did. We linked, our father's getting angry and our mother's criticism and everything with change. And it surprised us, and we didn't have the devices as the children to deal with change. But I am here to tell you that change is always good. Now, you've got to get straight with change. You've got to not be afraid of it. You've got to go with it. Yeah, you do. What you are not doing on this list of things is pulling your self-esteem down and causing any feelings of depression and loneliness and sadness and anxiety. I say with all my heart, determine your priorities in this list and go for it. Go for it. Nothing's going to happen except you'll be happy coming out of that ego child's mind. Try to get someone that you can work with that knows more than you do. Form a study group based on some of these radio shows. They're free for you. Based on the books that I have as offerings. The books I have out there are the Life You Want, and I have another one called the Teacup Prophecies, Little Bits of Wisdom. These things are so important that you move on your life. You move mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. The irony here is you think, oh, I've lived my life at a certain age. I can't do it now. That's an excuse, because you can. You can indeed. Everything you can say to me is an excuse, because everything is about growth and change and opportunity. That's where the opportunity is. Make little changes. I am going to guarantee you, even with the smallest changes, the universe rewards you abundantly, because that's the way it works. Thank you for listening today. This is a series, so our next series is going to be on the wealth, on your wealth, and on your home, which is certainly part of your wealth. So please listen next week. We'll be ready for you, and hopefully our marvelous signal will be up. At least I hope so. Please do. I am going to ask you, please follow us. and punch that you like us and all those things that you can do on the internet. There is on Blog Talk Radio a comment box. You can post the show to your friends. The unfortunate thing is I don't think that got on our Blog Talk Radio site, but you can certainly do a lot with social media. Oh, thank you so much, Lisa, for saying. And she said the Teacup Prophecies is amazing. I use it daily. It is an oracle, and it has, you can just open it, you can read it through, or you can just open it where you want. A lot of people are enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. It's fun for Michael and me, my husband and me. We're having fun with it, and other people I hear are doing so as well. So, darlings, thank you so much for listening. There's a whole lot of material for you, some quite free, on our website, which is Martha Burgess, Burgess Novak, Novak .net. We are a .net. So please investigate that, and we appreciate everything, and we wish you with all our heart a happy new year. Let's do a prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for our listeners, for our dear friends, for people we don't even know that, by the way, are our dear friends. Happy New Year to you too, Celine. God bless you all, and God blesses you and through how you think and how you feel and what you do based on love. So open it. Open who you really are. Don't disguise it anymore. Go and be your glory, your glorious selves. I wish this for you. Now we're asking, dear God, that these dear people who are listening and who are seeing me today, that they open to releasing whatever they can and deepening who they are as love, as you, and that they use it in the world unafraid, and they get back the thriving, the wonderful things that this world has to offer them for just stepping in that direction. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be here next week for you. We say this prayer in the name of all of you who are listening, our ascended masters, our love-centered guides and friends. Thank you for everything. Okay. Happy New Year, everyone. God blesses you through you. Make it a good one, okay?